ProPublica published quite a scoop about Trump DHS Secretary Christine Noem that in any era, any other era, I should say, would be a career-ending scandal. But to understand the pattern of corruption of this woman, we just have to zoom out just a little bit, just for a moment. Because since Noem took over DHS at the beginning of the year, she's become known for appearing to be more obsessed with putting on various costumes than doing her actual job. I mean, she donned a bulletproof vest just to talk to her own agents. She wore a Customs and Border Patrol uniform on Fox News. And of course, she is constantly, and I mean constantly, throwing on a cowboy hat and riding horses, always with plenty of cameras around to capture the moment. But Noem's apparent obsession with image actually goes much further than just putting on costumes, because she has directed more than $200 million taxpayer dollars into TV ads to promote her work at DHS. And just to put it in context, that is nearly twice what DHS spent on ads altogether in all of last year. And the content of those ads have already been a scandal kind of in and of themselves. And the rest of that money is where the story gets truly bonkers. I mean, since March, we have known that DHS skipped the normal competitive bidding process when giving out the contracts to make and air these ads. DHS claimed that because Trump declared an emergency at the southern border, they didn't have to waste time getting competitive bids. And that brings me to the first part of ProPublica's big scoop, because it turns out that the majority of that no-bid contract money, $143 million taxpayer dollars, went to this kind of mysterious LLC in Delaware, an LLC that was created just days before it got that no-bid contract, just days. And the man who owns the home that LLC lists as its address did not respond to ProPublica's questions. Now, when asked why the agency chose that LLC, DHS said, quote, "The results speak for themselves." This is an ad Christine Noem shot on October 2nd, which, by the way, was the second day of the government shutdown. So while hundreds of thousands of federal workers went without pay, including the nearly 50,000 TSA workers that work under Noem, Noem donned a cowboy hat and had a production company film her riding horseback with buffalo. And whether or not you care about the very weird content of the ad, you should care about who made it. Because according to ProPublica's new reporting, that ad was made by a company called Strategy Group, which is run by a man who is not only the husband of Noem's chief DHS spokesperson, Tricia McLaughlin, yes, she's a something, but also has personal and business ties to Noem herself. And the company's name, Strategy Group, does not appear on any of the public documents about the contract. Instead, the group listed on the contract is the mysterious Delaware LLC that DHS gave that $143 million contract to. I should say that DHS said in a statement to ProPublica that it does all of its contracting by the book. Okay. But the office in charge of funding ad contracts at DHS is the Office of Public Affairs, which is run by none other than DHS spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin.
Welcome back, guys. When I first watched this report, I honestly had to pause and replay parts of it, because what is being described here is not small money. And it is not a small responsibility either. This is a public taxpayer dollars, public trust, and serious questions around how power is being used at the highest level of government. According to the ProPublica investigation, Christine Noem, who is now the Secretary of Homeland Security, has been spending taxpayer money at a pace that immediately raises eyebrows. DHS is not a campaign office. It is a federal agency meant to protect the country, manage borders, and handle emergencies. So when you hear that more than $200 million was spent on TV ads promoting her work, it naturally makes people ask why. What makes this even more concerning is the comparison. DHS spent almost half that amount on ads the year before. So this was not normal spending. This was nearly double. And these ads were not warning people about disasters or giving emergency information. They were promotional. They were about her image and her leadership. Then there is the detail that feels almost unbelievable. Around $30,000 of this ad money was used to run ads in the Mar-a-Lago media market. That is not a random place. That area is closely connected to Donald Trump. This makes it look less like public service advertising and more like political signaling, using taxpayer money to impress one specific person. Now, let's talk about the contracts because this is where things get even more serious. DHS claimed there was an emergency at the southern border, and because of that, they skipped the normal competitive bidding process. Emergency powers are supposed to be used carefully, only when there is no time for standard procedures. But instead of spending contracts among experienced, well known companies, most of the money, about $143 million, went to one newly created LLC in Delaware. This company appeared almost out of nowhere. There was no public track record, and when reporters tried to ask questions, the owner did not respond. That alone is a red flag. When huge amount of public money go to a company with no clear answers, transparency is not optional. It is a basic requirement. The situation becomes even more troubling when you look at the connections behind the scenes. One of the ads featuring Noem was filmed during a government shutdown. That alone feels inappropriate because during a shutdown, federal workers are flugged, services are paused, and families are struggling. Yet, an ad was being filmed. That ad was produced by a company called Strategy Group. Now, here's where conflicts of interest come into focus. Strategy Group is run by the husband of Noem's chief DHS spokesperson, Tricia McLaughlin. That spokesperson is not just a random employee, she is one of Noem's closest communications aides and has long personal and professional ties to her. Even more concerning, the public documents for the contract did not list Strategy Group's name. Instead, they listed that same mysterious Delaware LLC. So, the company actually doing the work was hidden behind another name. That is not how transparency is supposed to work. And this is not the first time Strategy Group has been connected to Noem. When she was governor, her office hired the same company for advertising work. A former official has said that the bidding process back then was rigged, claiming that top aides pushed hard for Strategy Group to win. Noem denies this, but the pattern matters. When the same company keeps appearing, when personal relationships overlap with public contracts, and when massive sums of money are involved, Daniel alone is not enough to settle concerns. Public officials are held to a higher standards for a reason. Supporters might say this is all legal or that emergencies just fast decisions. But legality is not the same as ethics, and emergencies do not cancel the need for accountability. If anything, emergencies demand even stricter oversight because shortcuts can easily turn into abuse. This is not about party politics. It does not matter whether someone is Republican or Democrat. When what matters is that public money belongs to the people, not to any individual, not to their friends, and not to companies with special access. When government leaders use public funds to boost their image, direct money to connected firms, and hide details behind shell companies, trust erodes. And once trust is damaged, it is very hard to rebuild. That is why the call for an investigation is not extreme. It is responsible. Investigations are how Democrats protect themselves. They are how facts are separated from excuses. If everything is clean, an investigation will show that. If not, the public deserves to know. At the end of the day, this story is not just about one person, it is about a system that must choose transparency over secrecy and responsibility over self promotion. Taxpayers deserve honesty, not ads. They deserve answers, not silence. And they deserve leaders who remember that public service is not a personal brand but a public trust. So thanks for watching my video. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe the channel for more stories like this. I will see you in the next video.